Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. We're very excited because we've got Deborah Rothschild, Kelly Roberts, and Rosie with us. Malahan. Am I pronouncing
Yeah,
it
good.
correctly? I always feel like I'm messing it up. Carter Anderson is our fearless leader here who is herding our cats. I'm very excited that you guys are joining us. This is one of my favorite webinars to do, guys, because it's all about active aging strategies for fitness professionals. And we're going to be talking about effective fitness programs tailored to older adults. We have about 220 people that have registered for the webinar. My guess is we'll end up with about 50 live people showing up, about another 50 listening to the recording, and then we'll end up with about 80 that listen to the podcast. So just remember that we will be sending you the recording so that you can also forward it to friends and they can listen to the podcast because it's so fun for us to share this education. Kelly Roberts, very excited to have Kelly with us, who, by the way, if you, I'm sorry, I'm going to share this, Kelly, but if you see a little blood dripping out of her mouth, she just got a wisdom teeth pulled. We knew she was an intelligent person, but why she kept that tooth, her whole life, we're not quite sure. She was named IDEA International Fitness Instructor of the Year. She was also awarded the SCW Best Female Presenter. She got the Lifetime Achievement Award. She's in the National Fitness Hall of Fame. She's also received the Inspiration Award from Empower. She is an FAI, that's Functional Aging Institute, CPT certified. She's an ACE Senior Fitness Specialist. She's also on our SCW faculty leading our personal training certification, and she's a Schwinn Senior Master Trainer. So we're very excited. Kelly's here and not bleeding. So we're really, she's a trooper. She always shows up. And we've got Deborah Rothschild, who's one of my favorite senior fitness experts. She's got a master's in exercise science. She's been in this industry over 20 years, and she has an emphasis on fitness and wellness. She also is an ACE certified fitness specialist and a brain health trainer and an NFPT cancer recovery specialist. She's also got a BHOF bone fit certification and a Parkinson's wellness recovery certification. She is the owner of Tough Agers, which I really encourage you guys to check out. And I know Carter's going to throw it in the link, a link in there for all of us. And she's also an on-location fitness company that specializes working with older adults and all fitness levels and capabilities. And what I'm excited about bringing Rosie to you is she's in the middle of a storm. So we don't know if she's going to lose lighting, but she's got a flashlight with her. So we're kind of excited. So she's in the middle of Florida. She has almost 20 years experience teaching and counseling both virtually and live. She's also involved in all aspects of fitness, yoga, leadership, organizational development. She owns a master's of science degree in human development. She's an adjunct faculty member at the University of Rhode Island. She is certified by just about everybody, and she's also a fitness nutrition specialist. She's going to give us some insight into active aging and nutrition, which is very, very important. And she holds several SCW certifications. She also she wrote our personal training aqua certification, which is so important. And she serves on the fitness team at Trilogy in Orlando. It's an active aging community in Florida. So I'm just thrilled to have these people with us today. And the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about, you guys are going to have questions. Flyer them out. We've already got 40 of you that have joined us on this webinar. As it progresses, more and more join. But if you click on that chat box, you can just throw your questions in there and we see them and we will make sure to respond to them. So feel free to engage your questions right in the middle. I'm going to start with Deborah a little bit, and we're going to talk about what happens to the body as we age. Just give us like some bullet points here of the things we have to look out for and why.
So for me, I really am fascinated by the neuromotor system. So the neuromotor system is responsible for every motor task we complete throughout our day. And I love analogies. So my favorite analogy for this is if you think about an orchestra, you have your conductor and you have your musicians. So the conductor is representing the brain and the spinal centers, and the musicians are our muscles. So if the conductor is doing a good job, the musicians are able to play a masterpiece. But what happens as we age, unfortunately, our neuromotor systems decline. Actually, can start as early as age 30. And it will continue to decline faster if we are deconditioned, inactive, and maybe if you have a musculoskeletal injury or certain neurological injuries and conditions. So when this happens, we're losing the communication, right? The communication is slowing down. And so the result of that is we have less ability to balance, our reaction time reduces, our movement quality reduces, and hence we lose muscular strength. And with that decline, then we have an increase in the risk of falls, disability, and ultimately poor quality of life. So knowing this, what we as fitness professionals can do is work on neuromuscular exercises. And you can incorporate this in your cardiovascular, your resistance, your balance segments of your personal training sessions and group exercise classes, and make them fun and challenging and show layers so that people who want it, I call them challenges. If you want to take this challenge, do this. If you want to take this challenge, do this. Meanwhile, we're all doing an exercise, so we're all included.
So it's great. So you got to start with your brain, and then we're going to see what's going to happen to the body. And Kelly, what do you see happening? I know you do a lot of personal training with older adults. What do you see happening with your older adults as they age and as the mind-body connection tends to deteriorate?
I see a lot of balance issues, a lot of a rapid decline in muscle mass, grip strength, and I think you see older adults in gyms, and they get on the machines and they isolate different muscles one at a time. And coming back to the analogy of the orchestra, the problem with doing isolation exercises, while it might be okay for someone who is frail with severe balance deficits, is it's not teaching the instruments to play together. So, if you are working with someone who's frail, who is, with the severe balance deficits, who's a high falls risk, then you want to make sure that if you are on a machine, that you are also doing some integrated movements, that you're coming back to things like squats, lunges, step-ups, all your different movement patterns, push, pull, rotate, bilateral bend and lift, like a hip hinge or a deadlift, or a squat, single leg movements like step-ups, lunges. And the older adult is usually too scared to pick up dumbbells heavy enough to actually have an impact on their muscle mass. And society, I'm putting together a presentation for FAI coming up at Ideal World. And I was looking for some photos, and I was on a big website with photos and looking for pictures of older folks doing exercise. And every single picture has someone holding a little baby pink dumbbell, or a little baby blue dumbbell, or a little baby purple dumbbell. But you can't find a picture of an older adult with a big dumbbell in their hand. And so society doesn't think of older folks being capable of lifting heavy things. And so that's what they think of themselves too. They buy into that. And
it's very interesting Kelly, I also think it's a lot of fear. And we've got to make people feel comfortable when we're training them, that you're in a safe environment. Here is a place to do it, because when they get outside, it's the risk of injuries. I think what you're talking about also is the activities of daily living. Like, it's not just, doing a leg press to strengthen the lower body. It's trying to do a squat just on one leg, or lift something heavy, and encouraging an older adult, say, here's a 10-pound dumbbell, lift this up. And they stare at you. And I'm like, you know what? How much does your grandchild weigh? Do you want to be able to lift your grandchild? Let's get going on this 10-pound weight. Rosie, how do you encourage people, and what are some of the things you see happening to the older adults that we as fitness professionals can affect change?
I think that there's two different concepts that we have to talk about. One is the emotional, like you talked about, the confidence and the fear. We have to change that. And then, of course, the misconception about the weight. So fun props and creative programming make all the difference with an active aging population. Even if it's one-on-one and personal training, the use of colored tape and balls and balloons and ping pong balls and bands to practice those functions of those activities of daily life and makes it functional training, but celebrating the win that your client put their sock on while standing on one leg, and your client mulched their front garden bed by themselves, and celebrating that they got down on the floor with their grandbaby, and then taking that and using it as, okay, what's the next goal? I had a client recently tell me she wanted to zip line on her next cruise. And I'm okay. And not only is she an active ager, but she has MS and she struggled, and she has lost 38 pounds on this quest to zip line. And it's all about encouraging what was initially thought impossible.
I really like that. That's emotion, that is really gripping. And it's finding out if people, what is not just what is their motivation, but what is their goal. And you mentioned grip strength, Kelly. I'm going to jump back to you here. I think you brought something that measures grip strength, and why is that important?
This is a hand dynamometer, a GripX. You can get it on, it's not that expensive. You can get it on Amazon, but grip strength is absolutely directly correlated with functional ability and mortality. And it's super easy to test. You just literally squeeze, you squeeze, where are we? You squeeze it really hard, and then it comes with a little chart that tells you norms to compare it to, and you test right and left. Interestingly, usually your dominant hand doesn't squeeze as strong as your non-dominant hand, which is a little counterintuitive because your dominant hand is more dexterous, and you use it more for fine motor skills. Say, you pick up your shopping out of the car and you put all your bags in your non-dominant side while you open the door with your keys with your dominant hand. So this hand, your dominant hand, may actually be less strong than your non-dominant side. But grip strength directly correlates to ability, to functional ability, and it has been correlated to mortality as well, just like walking speed too.
Yeah, and you also mentioned balance. I always think of balance being, okay, I'm going to take a yoga class, I'm going to stand on one leg. What are other ways that we can train our balance?
There's a lot of different ways to train balance, and there's a lot of ways to assess it, but I'll give a couple of examples. So I'll just
Great, thank you.
Here. So, for example, you've got your straddle stance, and you've got a staggered stance. Your staggered stance is your most stable, and then the straddle stance is a little less stable because you have front back. You can come into a semi-tandem or tandem stance and then do things like head turns or visual tracking, which is even suggest visual tracking for me and I lose my balance. But you bring your fingertips forward and you look at your hand as you track out to the side and back in a tandem stance or semi-tandem stance. Then you've got braided walking forwards and back, tandem walking backwards and forwards, and then all your dynamic movements like lunges to toe tap, lunges to tandem heel tap, lunges to tandem. And so there's a lot of different ways. Dynamic balance is just as important as static balance because people don't fall over standing still, they fall over while they're moving. So training balance, I'll do a lot of dynamic stuff, throw in dynamic movement with balance challenges and visual tracking and head turns and close your eyes or dim your eyes, like just squint and dim your eyes while doing different balance tasks so that it becomes neurological as well as physiological.
That's fantastic. And Deborah, what other things do you use with your through your active your training with tough agers?
So some of them Kelly just mentioned, a lot of those are the neuromotor exercises. Some great ones to do is cognitive tasks layered with motor tasks. So you can have a lot of fun with those. So some of the ones that my group loves is the clock. So we have them pretend like they're standing in the middle of an old-fashioned clock. And, if I say 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock and 3 o'clock, they have to go to each one and come back to center. And so we do fun ones like this. I'll do directional. If I say forward, it red is forward. If I say blue, that means step back, green to the left, yellow to the right. And so then I'll just call off colors and, they have to think and move at the same time. So you're getting that mind body connection and you're creating, you're improving your neuromotor ability. We do a lot of weighted resistance to challenge balance and stability. So a lot of what Kelly was doing, but with a dumbbell, so for example, I would, and I do layer challenges like the word Kelly said, so that people in a class, you never want people in a group to feel embarrassed that they can't do it or they're too scared to do it. So like, for example, a side step to a wood chop. For example, they're holding one dumbbell. So I'll have them do a side step, push off, wood chop with the upper body. Now, then I would say, if you want to add a balance challenge, instead of tapping that leg back, you're going to float that leg when you return. And we'll do a few of those. And then I'll say, for those of you who want more of a lower body challenge, maybe you turn that side step into a side lunge. So I'm covering, for people who have knee, joint issues or just scared of squats and lunges. In a group setting, that's harder to address. So it's just give them the options. And then I'll say, if you want more of an upper body challenge, maybe you straighten your elbows when you do that wood chop. So you're lengthening the lever. So, we'll do fun things like that. So those are typical exercises that I do in my Tough Agers classes. And, everybody's involved. Everybody's doing what they can that day.
Yeah, I really like that because sometimes I get, I feel like with older adults, what I need to do is only do one-on-one. And yet they need this community. They need to be, I'll be honest with you, I'm 65 years old and I think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when I retire? And I don't want to be alone. So I want to be able to do small group training. I want to be able to do group training. And I like providing the alternatives, Deborah, that you said, like lunging, tapping it together, lunging, floating it up, lunging, lifting it up when you come back to the center. Are there certain things, Rosie, I know Trilogy does a lot, it has an amazing array of active aging programs. Are there certain things that you utilize that are the most effective when doing active agers in a group setting?
Yes, absolutely. So some of our classes at Trilogy, like balance, brain and spine, prehab, hips and back circuit, strong backs, a lot of that focus is integrating neuroplasticity into the classes, everything that we've been talking about, that not only the body awareness, but then the colors and the movement and the clock that we just mentioned. So I think that at Trilogy, we've really capitalized on the laughter and the fun, because there comes a frustration as you get older that your body is not reacting the same way it used to. It's not acting maybe fast enough, or it's not as strong as it used to be, or your grip strength is not as strong. So when there's a frustration in group fitness, it's that social aspect of being able to share and say, you're not alone, this is happening to everyone here, so let's work on it together so it can improve, and then celebrate. I recommend the use of a chair, a non-slip chair without the arm rails, is always great. The use of stations, we have actual bar stations that are bolted into the ground, which have allowed those who are especially coming off of knee and hip replacements, the ability to practice that sit to stand, the balance, again, what Kelly was talking about with dimming the eyes, so that you're holding on to something and not left out in the open. So that fear is a little bit better. Also, take your clients into the water. I think that if you have the ability to both train, whether it's one-on-one, small group, or group fitness, both in and out of the water, not only will the hydrostatic pressure of that water provide the support for your clients, but that fear of falling and that practice in balance, whether it's gait drills, side to side, rotational movement, the resistance is in all planes. And so we've taken our clients and our classes and gone back and forth a little, I don't know, surf and turf, I guess. But they can feel it on land and they can feel it in the water, the same individual. And then taking weight. Someone had a question, how do you progress a client from 4 pounds to 10 pounds, right? So obviously a nice slow progression with the correct movement patterns, but consider that a 6 pound weight in the water, a 6 pound like land weight in the water doesn't feel the same in the water. And so sometimes pulling those pieces of equipment into the water that you would normally use in land is this eye-opening awareness. So, oh, I can hold this, I can do this. And then it's not as daunting moving into the land setting.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a fabulous idea. I saw that at Trilogy. I think you teach that. Billy
does.
Billy Wartenberg teaches it. Tani Haggard teaches it. Really, really interesting. And Kelly, I saw you nodding your head. What are some techniques you use to take that, to take that little pink dumbbell and make it into like a real weight that that our older adults are able to work with?
Education.
Okay.
I educate. I think it's really important that people understand that they are capable of much more than they think they can do. So I'll educate them about bone density, about sarcopenia, loss of muscle mass, and something that we haven't talked about is sarcopenic obesity, which is actually also a really big problem for our elderly, because not only do they have a loss of muscle mass, but they have an excess of body fat, which makes them morphologically harder to train. They're uncomfortable in their body, but they're also weak. So for people like that, we need to be doing a mixture of strength training and cardio. We've got to get them moving. We've got to get them sweating. We've got to get them breathing hard, and we've got to get them lifting weights. And so circuit training is ideal for someone like that.
Yeah. And we were going to mention just a little bit, Rosie, of nutrition, because it's very interesting, Kelly. I just spent a whole month in France, And I was talking, my son plays professional hockey. He was playing there, and my husband and I went to visit. Anyway, my son always talks about skinny fat girls. And I was like, what? He goes, the girls in Paris are skinny fat. And they have no muscle mass. They're skinny. They smoke a lot and they drink a lot of coffee. But when I think about that, if somebody is very heavy, but they don't have a lot of muscle mass, so they've got a larger body to move and not enough muscle to move that body. So I think about, how do we deal with nutrition as we're aging? Because I think I can eat the same amount I used to eat, and I can eat this. Oh, don't nod at me, Rosie. I see you, you know, you may be turning your video right and left, but I know. So talk to me about nutrition, Rosie. What should we be eating more of? What should we be watching as we age? What advice can we provide our clients?
You're absolutely right, Sarah. So as we get older, we do require less calories, but your micronutrient intake needs to go up. So I don't know about you, but when I train my active agers, they're more often under eating than overeating. And a lot of that has to do with the taste buds change, the sense of smell changes, your stomach acid changes, perhaps you're on medication for an existing condition, and that changes the way that you taste or smell also, or makes you nauseous. So there's a lot of factors to consider, and food is just not the same as it used to be. So we have to encourage whole grains. We have to encourage fiber, lots of fiber, and we have to encourage more protein. Those would be the three things that I focus on with my active agers, and discussing making sure that they are eating prior to their workouts if it's going to be slightly intense, because we don't want anyone getting dizzy or nauseous or passing out because they come to a moderately intense circuit on an empty stomach. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we thought fats were bad and carbs were bad, and that mentality was driven into our active agers' minds. So to shift and transform the way we think about food, constantly educating, just like Kelly was saying, it has to happen consistently so that we're eating as clean as possible, encouraging our active agers to eat nutrient-rich fruits and vegetables and lean sources of protein to get all those micronutrients that they need, as well as up in that fiber, but not too quickly, because we know what happens when you up fiber too quickly.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. All right. So I'm gonna ask Deborah, what are some common misconceptions about exercise and aging that you encounter, and how do we deal with that?
Yes, so we've already kind of touched on the fear of the heavy weight training. There's also the fear of high intensity exercise, even if you're keeping it low impact, like our low impact, Tabata drills. There's a fear there, and like Rosie said, a lot of times it's just helping them to gain their confidence by seeing other people do it. I typically will explain to those people that are concerned about that those are safe and have been proven safe for people who have been cleared by their physician to perform those types of exercises and who have worked up to it. So it's not something we're going to do right away, but we're going to make sure that we build your body, strong enough to handle those things. But definitely, as we know, the high intensity interval training will help our health in numerous ways, most notably lower our blood pressure, and also produce those wonderful endorphins. So those happy feelings. I've run into a lot of older adults who will often confuse being sore after a workout, that they think they injured themselves. And so that is explaining to them, how we build muscle, what needs to happen in order for us to build muscle, and what's the normal time frame where you'll feel, sore muscles. So again, like Kelly says, it's a lot of lot of education. One thing that I run into a lot, because I train a lot of older adults who tell me they're athletes, and they've been athletes their whole life, and now they're 85, and in their mind they're still athletes, and that's wonderful. I hope I feel the same. And they've never stretched their whole life. I've never stretched. Why do I have to stretch now? And again, it's education. I like to use analogies, like I started with. I explain to them, think about your body as a house, right? And we need our house to be structurally strong and everything in the proper positions and lengths that they need to be, so that our house will stay standing, and our body is the same way. So I explain to them, if you have tight muscles, it's going to pull your structure out of alignment. And then what it's going to do is going to put undue stress on your muscles, your joints, your ligaments, and your bones. And we are trying to keep you as safe as possible. So let's focus on stretching those tight muscles. And that usually convinces them.
And that helps them do it. It's
Yeah.
kind of interesting. And Deborah, maybe you can answer this. We're getting some good comments here and some really nice questions. I really like Vanessa's comment when she says, there's also big fit. Okay. I had a running partner that was like 50 pounds heavier than me. She could kick my butt on a track. I mean, she was bigger, but amazingly fit. So that's something that we should think about. But what about metabolic syndrome? Anastasia has asked this. What about metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes? Sensitivity to carbs is very hard to deal with for many people. Finding something to eat that doesn't throw up the blood sugar with an up and then down crash is hard. Maybe Rosie, this might be a question for you to respond to.
Sure. It's always difficult to deal with, especially someone who's recently been diagnosed, or who's trying to find the best method of eating for themselves. And it's also important to remember that it varies from person to person, and what may work for one may not work for another. But we really do try to encourage, in terms of avoiding the high-low. We're trying to reduce, obviously, the amount of refined sugars that are available, which is a hard thing to do because so many of our health bars or granola bars or healthy looking snacks, if you read the label, tend to have added sugars in them. We're not talking about the natural fruit sugars, but those that have been then added. So teaching how to read a package label, very, very important. How to dissect and look for minimal ingredients is really great. Also, having your clients explore and work with what they have in their pantry all the time, and then mixing and combining some of those different items. So whether it's a whole grain, 100% whole grain slice of toast with, say, avocado smeared on it, or maybe it's a Greek yogurt with no added sugars, or very, very low added sugars, with a little bit of fruit, and having them give it a try in almost an experiment. So encouraging them to figure out what works best for their body so they can feel the best when they're performing in class or one-on-one.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful advice. You brought up, Deborah, you talked about the flexibility, the need for flexibility as we age, and the decrease of flexibility as we age. What are the mind-body practices that you think that are very effective for older adults, that you've seen and that you're implementing in the programs you offer?
So I do see the benefit of mindfulness and mind-body exercises, yoga, Tai Chi. However, I've tried. I'm not somebody who can teach those formats. So my solution is I incorporate aspects of those into my programs. So for example, we do a lot of range of motion movements in the low impact cardio segment, not only when we're doing full body, but with the way that I do my cardio, I do drills. So I don't do choreography. I do cardio as drills. and I use the beats per minute for cadence, and they can follow it or not, again, so that we can have different levels of fitness and they're all working, at the level that they should be that day. But then I'll have them march, and then we'll do, YTAs for a range of motion, or, YTWs, or we'll do scarecrow arms
What are
Oh,
YTWs?
YTWs. So it's I don't know if I can do this with my background,
Yeah.
but you do the
Y,
Y, and then you come out to the
T.
T, and then you do the W. And I like to do the W where you squeeze your elbows together behind your back and really activate all those posture muscles back there. We'll do the scarecrow arms, so internal, external rotation. Meanwhile, we're marching, we're kind of catching our breath for the next cardio drill. So it's an interval, and I'm sneaking in different, shoulder range of motion exercises and to them. I mean, I explain to them this will help your posture. This will, help you increase your range of motion. But mostly they're just glad they're getting a little break from the cardio drill. But the mindfulness is really important, I feel, because I think a lot of people will go to a class and will just kind of check out mentally and just copy the person, but we're not really thinking. So I'm constantly talking to them about what muscles are we working? Where are those muscles? What are we doing with those muscles? Are we increasing range of motion? Are we pushing? Are we pulling? Are we stretching? What are we doing with those muscles? Where's your body? What are your knees doing? When are you breathing in? When are you breathing out? So I'm really constantly like, okay, think about what you're doing and what, I talk about, okay, why are we doing this movement? We're squatting and we're doing a mid chop. This is you picking up your laundry basket, you're squatting down with good form and, trying to relate it. So that's kind of my solution for kind of bringing their awareness into the class. And then, of course, ending with core exercises on the floor, teaching them how to properly get on the floor, and more importantly, get off of the floor, and stretches. So I sneak all those wonderful benefits of mind-body exercise into my classes.
That's wonderful. And Kelly, you've answered a few questions, which is great, in the chat box. We did get a question, are these, the Y's, the T's, the W's, are we isometrically holding them? How do we do these exercises? And you also talked about using your hand holds and things like that. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, please?
I'll use a mixed format very often in my conditioning classes, where we'll alternate between strength and mobility. So we'll do a series of strength moves and then move into a mobility section of dynamic movements that addresses what we just did with the dynamic strength movement exercise. And then if I'm doing something that involves a long period of time of gripping, then I'll do some hand exercises to release the grips, to stretch the fingers, because grip strength is really important, but also the opposing stretch is just as important, so we don't end up with our hands like this. And so, I'll do stretches.
I always talk about when muscles atrophy is we've got more muscles in the palm that can pull things in. And oh God, look at my aging hands, but we don't have as many muscles outside. So when I have them do hand exercise, I actually focus on the extension and not just the flexion, but open and open. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I got very excited that you were absolutely right. So yeah, please go ahead. So you do a lot of hand movement.
Yeah, I do. I encourage sustained gripping for grip endurance and picking up heavier things. If we're lifting heavier, then I take breaks in between the exercises and then do some stretches for the hands, some extension, just some good finger movements. Farmer's carries, someone just put in the comments, love farmer's carries with nice heavy kettlebells. But it depends on the class and the people, but I mix in maybe mobility, maybe cardio, Maybe it depends on the goal of the class, but I'll usually strength is always in my classes because I really believe that doing some good, strong lifting with integrated movement is critical for maintaining your function.
Yes. And Deborah, you also mentioned the HIIT training. And I have to be honest with you, that's a little scary to me because I don't run anymore. I'm a walker. I do strength training. I do yoga. I'm not really getting my heart rate up like I used to. I'm not, it's just, I can't run like I used to. I ran a lot when I was young, and I've got knees and hips and lower back and whatever. What are some things that you recommend we could do to get our heart rate up that the risk of injury is much lower?
So what I do in my typical Tough Agers classes is we do the 20 minutes of low impact cardio, and then I'll do 3 deep breaths in and like, okay, let's all hydrate. And then I choose 4 exercises that they've already done that day, so they have them fresh in your mind. And we do 20 seconds as fast as you can, 10 seconds recovery for 4 minutes. And the oldest person in my class is 87, and it's by far their favorite part of the class. So they're working as fast as they can. And for some people, that's slow, but that's as fast as they can. And other people, they're moving faster than I am. For some people, that's still not going to get their heart rate up like they want to. So I'll have them hold a dumbbell, and you can do a right repeater knee, remember step. I still call it repeater knee, even though we're not on a step, but we're doing right repeater knee basically with a wood chop. So now you've got resistance here, and I tell them, for this, it's more of a power move. So we're not going to go too heavy. So I use the analogy light, medium, and heavy, and that's what it is to them. So my light, medium, and heavy is different than their light, medium, and heavy.
Yeah,
but
I
I'll say your light or medium dumbbell, and then do repeater knee while other people don't have a dumbbell. And if that doesn't get your heart rate up, I'd be very surprised. And it's not high impact.
And Kelly, like I walked right into that one. Okay. She's riding bike as fast as she can. And how do you adjust your cycle programs? And then yes, Rosie, I'll get to you about aquatics. But
rowing too. Someone mentioned rowing. I was teaching a rowing class, and the average age of my participant was 68. I had women in their high 70s, quite a few of them, because they were friends. They used to take my strength class and my rowing class. And we would do all kinds of neuroplasticity drills. We would call out rowing drills in different languages. We would count in different languages. We were doing races. It was definitely HIIT training. And so cycling too. Cycling and rowing are both excellent for older adults. Rowing is a little bit harder on your back than cycling. Cycling, if you put the handlebars up higher, if you've got low back issues. But out of a rower and a cyclist, a rower will have better mobility because it moves you through such a large range of motion.
Right.
But you can do all kinds of HIIT training for them. Just keep them hydrated, because hydration is an issue as you get older because they tend not to hydrate.
Yeah. And it's where it's a big issue is in the pool, because they don't want to have to get out of the pool, walk to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, come back to the pool, get back in the pool. I mean, take your bathing suit off, put your bathing suit on. I'm like, that's why they have a hot tub. That's a very bad joke. I'm so sorry. Well, on that note, it is in Chicago, it's 6:45. So we're at the end. But I do want to tell you guys, we have a very exciting program coming up. I'm going to ask Carter if he wouldn't mind play the video. We have an Active Aging Summit coming about July 27th and 28th. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carter, for playing that. So I thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Deborah. We'll see you at the
Thank you.
Active Aging Summit. She's one of our beloved sponsors. We'll see Kelly Roberts, who's going to be working with Schwinn, and we'll see Rosie there because she's also part of our SEAT team. And I know she supports our water program and personal training in the pool as well. All right. Thank you, guys. Everybody have a great night,
you.
and we look forward to seeing you again next month.
Bye.